And welcome once again to Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Johanna Hampton. She is candidate for City Council, Worcester. Johanna, it's really a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, you're not going into the political realm for the first time of your life, but before I ask you any questions concerning that, I just want to ask you what atmosphere is like pertaining to doctors appealing to nurses to get back to work, knowing very well that COVID-19 is still on the uptick, and we need to have as much medical personnel working in within their workplace to keep everything going smoothly.
So right now, the doctors in Worcester are reaching out and making their pleas to tenant healthcare to let the nurses come back to work in their current positions that they held prior to the strike.
Mm-hmm.
We're over 200 days on a strike with these nurses. COVID is an uptick, and we are down about 80 to 100 beds.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is imperative that tenant, they have to kind of bend on this one. They have to give, because we need our nurses, and we need to make sure that the whole reason the nurses are striking, which is patient care, is coming first. And so in order for that to happen, these nurses need to get back to work.
Yes. Do you have any idea what caused the strike in first place?
So it was, from my understanding and speaking with nurses in the union, and actually standing on the front lines with the nurses at the strike, it was about ratio, how many nurses to patients, which was creating kind of inadequate patient care. So it was 1 nurse to 5 patients, or, something around that ratio. And it was way too many patients per nurse. So the patients weren't getting the proper care.
Right.
The nurses couldn't allocate all the time that they needed per patient.
Okay. And that's standard patients or COVID patients?
Standard patients.
Standard
and
patients.
Then you had to think about add on top of those 5 patients, adding COVID patients to that mix, who need a lot more attention and a lot more care.
Do you know if the assignment of nurses, a ratio of 1 to 5, come in a result because there's a lack of nurses in Worcester, or because the hospital is trying to keep as much money within their capability than actually hiring enough nurses to deal with the matter?
I think it's a little bit of both. Hospitals and prisons are big business. They're corporations. A lot of people don't look at it like that, or realize that it is a business.
Yes.
But it's business, and the nurses are taking on a lot of the responsibilities within the hospital as far as nurses go. And, if you've ever been to a doctor's office or a hospital or anything, the first person you see is the nurse, the last person you see is a doctor. And they come in, they're weighing you, they're taking your blood pressure, doing all your vitals. They're the ones that are coming in to administer your medication. They're the ones to come and bring you the ice water or whatever it is you need, or the heating pad. So the nurses are on a constant go. And when we're talking about the number of nurses, and if there are enough, and if it's a lack of hiring, there are different levels to nursing. So you can get a PCA, a CNA, or you can get a LPN or RN. Yeah, so there are different levels to it, and different nurses are responsible for different things. When you're in the hospital, there are PCAs or CNAs that may come in and do your vitals, but then the person that's administering your medication is going to be the nurse. And if you're looking at just the nurse aspect of it, there is there's a little bit of a shortage on nurses, but nursing takes a lot more schooling. So it's a big chain effect, and if you can't get into school, or you can't get that degree to become a nurse, and then you have to still try to find a job as a nurse, it's a lot in that whole circle of being a nurse, and why there may be a shortage of nurses.
Okay, gotcha. My question goes out to you now surrounding the political realm. At this point of time, how effective is the city council in Worcester in getting things done for the residents? How is it? How effective is it right now?
Um, I would say because it's an election year,
Mm-hmm.
there seems to be, some movement, there's some activity.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to election, um, it was kind of silent. There wasn't much movement. If everything was focused around Polar Park
Mm-hmm.
and getting Polar Park built.
Mm-hmm.
But those grassroots community things such as homelessness and addiction, mental health,
Mm-hmm.
schools, all of those things that are important daily
Mm-hmm.
were not being cared for at
Okay.
all.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get back to those issues pretty shortly, but I want to ask you a question. What are you going to bring to the table right now to bring a shake-up to the city council? Because we know for a fact that the council are the first vocal point that connect with the residents and know what the residents needs in their communities, and then it is brought before the local government to make things happen. They are responsible for so much in between the residents and the local government itself. What would you bring that is new and innovative to make an impact in restructuring what you see presently is going on?
Okay, that's a great question.
Mhm.
And I tell people all the time, I'm
Take your
not a
time.
politician.
I know,
Yeah,
take your time, take your time.
I'm not a
Take
politician.
your time
I
and answer to the best of your ability.
Yes, I am an everyday person. And when I
Hmm.
say an everyday person is I live in this city. I'm in the same supermarkets, gas stations, corner stores as regular everyday people. I don't think there's anywhere that I can go in this city that somebody doesn't stop and have a conversation with me or say hi. And if you know me from birth, my
Hmm.
nickname is Misty. That's what everybody calls me. So,
Hmm.
I hear that quite often.
Yes.
What I bring to the city council is one representation of the marginalized
Hmm.
and the neglected.
Hmm.
Um, from 1722, I have to tell this story all the time.
Hmm.
1722 was the city hall started. It took 525 years for a Black woman to ever sit on the city council, and that was Stacey Du Bois Lester.
Hmm.
There has not been a Black woman since her.
Yes.
And that was, I want to say, in the 2000s, early 2000s, 20 something years, 21
Hmm.
years at this point since. So in all of this time, there has not been any representation.
Hmm.
And the point of being a city council is, yes, budget, but it's also to represent
Hmm.
those within our city. And
Yes.
how the lack of representation just shows the inequality, and there's no equitability there because we don't have a say. So I'd like to step into that role, and
Hmm.
combine that with the skills that I have and the listening that I've done to everyone in my district,
Hmm.
about their concerns
Hmm.
and really amplify their voice. I tell people, I don't want to be your voice. You have your own voice. I just want to be that microphone so that people can actually pay attention and listen and hear and take that listening and put it into action. And that's what my plan is to do, is to put action behind the words.
Right. And that is a great thing. And I'm glad that you're really running for this. But before, you just mentioned quite a bit of issues surrounding mental health and homelessness and so forth. And there is not a voice there that representing them. And my question to you at this juncture, because you have a vision, you have an understanding and a connection as to what's going on within your community. Have you developed a strategic plan or a proposition that you can say, well, listen, these are the changes that need to be made. We have too much homeless here in Worcester. We have too much mental health situations. There's so much different addictions and these kind of things. Here's my plan. This is what I want. Do you have such a plan, detailed plan, that you can run on right now as we speak?
I do. So a lot of it is based upon working with all of the, or vast majority, I should say, the nonprofit organizations and the grassroots organizations that are already out there doing the work. We want to expand on what they're already doing by providing more funding to their programs. We want to consider and take a look at properties that the city owns that we can invest more funding in to create more of those same programs, which will expand beds, which will expand counseling and therapies. We have a lot here in Worcester that is just not being utilized. So we need to put forth a plan so we can expand on what's already being done and, kind of support more in the aspect of funding and providing bodies to the organizations that are already doing the work. They need our support for everything to be successful. We're trying to push that across so people understand there are already programs here, but their capacity is full. So we need to expand and try to help them improve on what they're doing already.
Okay. But for your new plans, do you have a budgetary proposal at this point that you can say, well, listen, this is the this is the funding we're looking at to get X, Y, or Z put in place that can bring about some form of efficiency and effectiveness in how we manipulate the problems that surrounding Worcester right now. Do you have that budgetary proposal in place?
So right now, there is not a solid budgetary proposal because the budget has already been set by our city manager for the fiscal year of 2022. We have to kind of base upon what's already been set.
Right.
There are open discussions in public forums and discussions currently about the ARPA funds. That's $110 million that has come into our city from the federal government, and what to do, how to spend that money. And so I try to urge people to attend those meetings, speak your piece, and say where you'd like to see those funds go. A lot of people are pushing for more affordable housing, which we do need. We need that in the worst way. And it's not just an affordable housing to where, it's a little lower than $1,350 a month for a 2-bedroom. Yes. We need it to be affordable. Of course. Your income. We want to see those 36 to 50%.
Well, I absolutely, because I firmly believe also that there are those who are in a very low income earning capacity that even sometimes a month don't even make that. And even if they make that, time taxes are out. They hardly got bus fare and lunch money or anything to feed their kids with or buy clothes for themselves. That is a way below poverty line. I mean, you don't need a rocket scientist to figure this out. If you have a vast majority of residents in your city that are going through this situation, I mean, how could you, at election year, go and ask these said very people to vote for you and you are ignoring them? It doesn't make no sense at all. So, I mean, Joanna, I believe you have a lot going your way. And this is not to patronize you, because I don't want to come across as being biased in any form, considering that I may very well be interviewing your opponent. I don't want to do that. But I want to establish the fact that a city only as strong as its residents and the economic well-being of its residents. If you have a lot of poor residents in your city, they're going to put a strain on your economy. And in the process of doing that, it's not going to look good for you, the mayor or the management team surrounding the mayor. And neither should that team or the mayor be in a position to actually neglect these things or not address these matters seriously. We live in a time where you just can't select any one side, but you have to be in a position to manage according to the situation demand. Right?
Right.
So with that said, what economic impact does the city have right now in terms of creating wealth for those underprivileged, or creating a position that those underprivileged could rise to the occasion and make wealth for themselves?
So currently, I'm just a candidate right now.
Yes, I know. I know.
I don't have the inside scoop.
From your observation, because if there were one, you should be able to see something.
From my observation, I feel that the city does have capacity to help to create generational wealth, to help to break the poverty curse. I feel that they do not make people the priority. People are not the priority. Their priority in Worcester is bringing in investors. Their priority is almost industrializing the city. So businesses, they want to bring in businesses. They think that these businesses and all of these attractions are going to bring new people to our city. And that's their thought. That's their train of thought on the issue. My train of thought on the issue is we are at capacity for people in Worcester. The census just came out and we are we're at capacity. But what are you doing to help the businesses and the people who are already here? Well, you're creating all these big, expensive lofts for people to live in, but nobody can afford to live there. So where's the job training? Where's the, any kind of training that's going to help somebody get a better job? Where's the educational portion to where you can get a degree? Where is the support from the city on these matters is my question.
Well, that's a good question too, because, you just mentioned they want to bring more people to the city. And I guess the people that they want to bring to the city are people who are probably lavish with some form of wealth. And that's a strategic plan by any mayor or anyone who runs a city, is to attract as much wealthy people to the city as possible to invest. But the question still remains, what happens to the people who are homeless? You speak about affordable housing. And I don't know what the stats are like pertaining to homeless in Worcester, but if they are low income earners, if they're not working at all, are they going to remain homeless, or you're going to do something about it? If you're going to do something about it, why haven't it not done before? It's not like you just decide to run for government. You are in government. You are the government. Why is nothing getting done about it? So my question to you, how would you approach that situation right now, whether it's in a debate or not? Because by rights, you would be at the realm of leadership. My question to you, how are you going to make an impact? Only Black women. How, and I always say this, it's either you're going to be heard or not get heard, right? So how are you going to make an impact? How are you going to make your voice heard?
Well, I try to lead with action. I mean, I can be the angry black woman and be loud, but I don't think that's going to get it done.
It's not going to get it done.
So,
Diplomacy has to get it
yeah,
done. Hmm.
yeah, my approach is more to work with the organizations again that are already doing some things and
Hmm.
create more programs and expand more, make sure that the funding is there for them to expand. Um, I think a lot of times the city has misappropriated funds and given funds where they weren't necessarily needed. They were wanted, but not needed. And I do feel like investing more in those programs that are out there to combat
Hmm.
homelessness. We have Central Mass Housing Alliance here in Worcester, and they do a lot
Hmm.
with assisting people if they owe back rent or if they need first and last in security. They actually work with certain
Hmm.
landlords to make sure that people are able to obtain housing. They do a lot. And we have all the housing authorities here as well that we can work with and expand on. And instead of building lofts, we can try to put our focus into building what I would consider affordable housing. And it would be an income cap in order to qualify for that housing.
Hmm.
So if you're making under, maybe 25,000 a year, because that for me is way below poverty
Hmm.
level, you may qualify for an apartment, a family unit,
Hmm.
and even single people units, because a lot of times the single people are left out because they're only one person and they figured they can manage on their own, but they're struggling too. So there are a whole bunch of ideas that I have and a whole bunch of things that I'd like to implement in a big way to make a big impact, to change things almost, I believe in instant gratification.
Hmm.
So that's the goal. I'd like instant gratification. This
Well, I
is
also
one.
believe that um, government is not designed to do everything for everyone. But I believe that when there is an overwhelming majority is in a very bad position, that government have to do something for that majority. Um, there are homelessness in Worcester, and I believe there are plenty. Some of them may not even be working. Now, there may be homes that they can run to, shelters they can run to when winter comes in, all those kind of things. Do you think that the look of government should be in a position for those who really can't help themselves is to officially establish some form of shelter that can rehabilitate, train, and bring these people to a consciousness of where they can get up and make a difference in their own life. Now, it's not to be permanent, but government invests in a major shelter where it can house several people, maybe hundreds of people, who knows, the way they can be rehabilitated and trained to go out there in the workforce and do better for themselves, rather than having them on the street, probably robbing the store, getting high on drugs, all these type of things. I think and I mean, opioid is a crisis in America. Don't get me wrong. This is widespread all across America. It's a crisis. And I believe that every city in itself should allot some kind of finance strictly to rehabilitate. I think federal
Mhm.
government should make that journey possible to rehabilitate these people, put them in a position where they can get over their substance abuse and try to make a living for their own selves. Do you think that should be something put in place right away?
I do. I think that is well overdue. I think we're late on that. I think that should have been done years ago, because of the opioid crisis and how it is affecting local levels. In your basic downtown or just your neighborhood in general, playgrounds and parks where you're finding needles. Um, you know, those are the type of things that need to have immediate
Right.
beginnings. We cannot wait.
Okay. One question I have for you remaining, actually. Do you think the present city councilors themselves really care or doing a good job or as effective as they should be?
I will say
Individually
some.
speaking.
Some. I don't even have to think about that. There are some who I feel like do care. There are some who do care, but they're so tired. Like you can watch a city council meeting in Worcester on Tuesday at 6:30 via the mass.gov website. Sorry for my background. But you can see they're tired. And we have to remember it's a democracy.
Yes.
So no matter what someone is fighting for, I can get in there and fight for everything that I say and really mean it and be wholehearted and get voted down. But I do want the people to know that regardless of whether I get voted down, I'll put it on the agenda and I will petition for it every week.
Yes. Okay.
Get it done. But they're fighting, and it's a losing battle because the playing field is not even. And we need to even that playing field, you know, and really open up discussions and really try to make some changes. So for those that are on the city council that are actually fighting, I see you. And for those that are not fighting, who are just there and, you know, taking up space, it is election year.
Okay, great. Well, one final question to you. There's any comforting word would you like to give those minorities who are in a desolate situation right now?
Yes. Okay. What I would say, because I am